Trustees meeting for February 17, 2016. I would like to call to order and ask at this time that Tara Mitchner do the roll call.
Absolutely. Trustee William Waller.
Here.
Trustee Craig Messernet.
Here.
Trustee Tara Mitchner, I am here. Trustee Doreen Popard. Here. Trustee Mark Stirring.
Here.
Trustee Ramesh Verma.
Absent, excused.
And student representatives, Richera Anka-Reddy Gary.
Here.
And Cindy Wong.
Absent, excused. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Third race. Stand, say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like us to take a look at the agenda for this evening. Anybody has any comments to the agenda?
Move to approve. I actually have a comment, I apologize. On C, approval of minutes for the budget study session.
Yes.
There were some omissions, so I was wondering if we could not approve it right now, and if it could be based on items that are not reflected. I have a few notes on what some of those are, but it's probably best that the recording is listened to again if it's a redo.
Okay, we can do it that way. That'll work. For the first would be just the agenda. Any comments on this agenda, on the overall agenda? And we'll get to the consent agenda in a second in regard to that, but the agenda for tonight.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The overall agenda has been approved. And now the consent agenda, you would like to not approve item C, which is the special meeting budget study session?
Correct.
Because there's some additions and they're probably too extensive to try to.
There's a lot of them.
Okay.
So if we could just do a redo with the recording, and we still have the recording.
Okay. Okay. Is that agreeable to everyone? Okay. Did I hear a second? Second. On the consent agenda? Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, which would be items A, B, and D, leaving C for review? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Item number 5, correspondence. We have a thank you letter, Julie.
Yes, we do. This is from the American Business Women's Association. Each year they hold an annual auction. The library participated by providing a bag of books that could be auctioned off. And this was a thank you letter that was received on January 23rd from Christina Strew and Marcia Green, both co-chairs of the American Business Women's Association auction and the project that took place at that time.
Great. Item number 6, presentations.
So it is not my pleasure. I'm going to say that right off the bat, because tonight we are going to say goodbye to someone very special to the Novi Library Board of Trustees. Mark Stirring, you have been on our board and have been serving the library board for 12 years, 12 amazing years. I know, we could start with a clap. I had the privilege of working with you 8 of those 12, and it's been absolutely amazing. When you can learn from someone, when you can work with someone and advocate for an amazing library, which I do believe we have. You assisted us with the building project. You assisted us with policies. You've assisted us with guidance. I appreciate your legal background, which you also brought to the library. And for 12 amazing years, you really have been a fantastic leader. I know I'm speaking for myself and for the library and the staff, but I do believe you've also been a leader for our library board as well. You have so much history that you've brought with us, and very positive experiences, and you've brought us along in in a great way over the years, and I am sad to see you go tonight. I know that you and I have talked, and hopefully we can keep you on retainer, and we can call you for those history questions once in a while at no charge. No, but at this time, what I want to do is, I know we have people who are interested in speaking about you because of their experiences and how they've worked with you in the past, but I do want to call you up here at this time because I do have a plaque for you. And I'm very happy to be presenting this to you. Mark Stirring, Novi Public Library Board of Trustees, in grateful recognition of 12 years of service to the Novi Public Library, March 2004 to March 2016. Thank you for your amazing leadership with building planning and execution, financial oversight, strategic planning, and library advocacy. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure. I know I'll first call up Council Member Laura Casey to the podium, and then we'll do some photos afterwards, but we have a number of people that want to, they have some remarks tonight. So Laura?
It's a lot easier, Mark, if you were sitting in front of me. So there was some distance. You know, I have to admit, there are a few things in this world that I've always taken for granted. The sun rising, air, gravity, and Mark Stirring on the Novi Public Library Board. Because my experience in the city and my experience with the library has always had Mark involved. And I'll probably embarrass him by saying that he has been a mentor to me and probably never knew it. Because when I first joined the board, I was a little young, I was a little naive, I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into, and when I was in doubt, I would look to Mark. And never really had to ask a question, but watched his demeanor, learned how to act as a trustee just by watching Mr. Stirring. So, you know, in cases like this, it's pretty common to say that contributions that leaders in the community make are immeasurable, and that's very true. But I can also point to that big building behind me and say there's 55,000 square feet that we can say you were involved with and that you led the charge as both a director or trustee on the library board and on the building authority. So I'm going to leave the microphone because there are many of Mark's former colleagues who wanted to come tonight and just say thank you and recognize the tenure and the dedication and the commitment that Mark has to this community and has given to all of us through his service on the library board. So Mark, thank you very much. I can't believe you're not going to be on the board, but we can't say enough to you for the work that you've done to make Novi and the library such a great place to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those kind
Yeah, good evening. My name is Willie Menon. I had the honor of serving with Mark Stirring as a trustee on the library board for 6.5 years. And actually had an opportunity to serve with him a little bit longer than that because what most people don't know is while Mark was involved in the building authority when we were building the library, and certainly as a leader on this particular board, he was actually instrumental way back when we were first discussing putting the bond on the ballot to get approval for the funds to build this library. And I got to tell you, it was outstanding work on his behalf, and I think the community owes you a ton for that. One thing, and I kind of laugh because some of the words that Laura said were similar to some of the things that I wanted to say. I learned one great thing from you was from your demeanor. I found that from you, I learned that no matter how tough an issue is, and no matter how heated an issue could get, that things could be resolved in a calm manner. And I appreciate that from you. I also thank you for being a great mentor. It's another thing. I stole some. I learned a lot from you, whether you know it or not. I really appreciated, again, serving with you. Your service to the city and to the library will be forever remembered, and I thank you also just for being a great friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like, wasn't that old show, like, you know, this is your past or something like that? I'm too young to remember that, but it's kind of what it feels like probably for Mark. But my name's Terry Margolis, and I had the absolute pleasure of serving on library board for 4 years. I just did the math, actually, when they said how long you'd been on the library board. So I guess we were on the library board for 4 years. And I was thinking tonight about what I was going to say, and I thought, oh, Mark, the stories I could tell. But that's really not why I'm here today, although I will share a couple of them. But, you know, really the reason I'm here today is to thank you for your service. When I think of people in Novi, don't you just hate standing here while people say these things? Is the camera on him too? Is that good? You know, if I think of the words of a selfless public servant in the city of Novi, Mark's who comes to mind. And that is not just because I'm here today talking about Mark. That is an absolute truth. There is no underlying agenda with Mark. He is part of this city and part of this library board because he believes in it. And I think I'm probably the only one other than Mark that could tell the story of how he actually got on the library board. So I will tell that because it really is an example of how he approaches things. So when I was president of the library board, I was having a discussion with Mayor Lou Sortis, so you can see how long ago that was. Sorry, Lou Sortis, I didn't mean to say you were that long ago, if he's watching. And we were talking about library board members. How could we encourage people to be part of the library board? Because at that time, a bond had just gone down to defeat for the new library. Things were a bit of disarray, and it was how do we get this building? So I remember sitting in the mayor's conference room with Lou Sortis, and he's looking through old applications for the library board, and he says, you know, Mark Stirring applied for library board some time ago, and do you know him? I said, no, I've never met Mark. He said, I bet he'd be good. Would you call him? I said, sure. So I picked up the phone and called this person that I had never met and talked to him. And I don't remember exactly what his response was, but I think it was, sure, I'll serve on the library board. So that's just really the approach. When there was something that needed to be done, Mark stepped up and did it. We had many calls. I can remember being in my car back and forth to work with Mark for hours and hours and hours. Never too busy. Always willing to listen. And I think the comment about his demeanor is the way he approached disagreements taught me a great deal in that he could vehemently disagree with you, and certainly he had disagreed with me once or twice, but yet you could always have a very rational and a very appropriate and a very business-like conversation. And even if you didn't end up seeing eye to eye, you realized that both of you had a point. So I also wanted to comment that there is a huge piece of Mr. Mark Stirring in that library that we now have a part of. I will go as far to say if it wasn't for Mark, there's a really good chance that that building would not be there. His work on the building authority, there's his work on the library board, his work on the bond, irreplaceable. So with all that, I will say again, and won't take up more time, but thank you, Mark, for your service. Your mark on this community will be here for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm David Margolis, and I will be brief. I'd like to echo the sentiments of the speakers before me because it all rings true. So briefly, I just want to say that I had the honor and privilege of serving alongside Trustee Stirring for 6 years. This afforded me the opportunity to observe and admire up close Mark's ability to balance his fiduciary responsibilities while opining on budgets or policies while maintaining his humanity, because he realized that the decisions that we made impacted real people's lives. And he always kept that, front and center. that we had a job to do, and we needed to be fair and equitable, but it affected people, and I never lost sight of that. So, as a resident of Novi, I just want to personally thank you for your dedication and service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Larry Checkeye, also former library trustee, and the comments made so far about Mark, I won't repeat, but they're spot on. I would only add that the terms civility and consensus building are also two traits that I've always admired Mark for his ability to do and to bring across, not only here at the library board, for which I had the pleasure of serving with Mark for 8 years. Mark and I have also served together for about 20 years in the building authority, and I've had the pleasure of calling Mark a friend and colleague for close to 25 years. So I've always enjoyed my experiences with Mark, whether or not it's been pleasure in a professional setting or in a volunteer setting such as this. And I can only say that Mark has always conducted himself, as you've heard from the other members today. My experience has been that Mark has conducted himself in the same manner, whether or not it's sitting in outside a courtroom, in an office negotiating a contract, or in a pub having a beer and having a conversation about current events. His approach to it has always been the same, just as he's been mentioned here today. So congratulations
Thank you.
again.
Thank you. Well, maybe this is a good meeting that we ought to talk about limiting how many people can speak or how long they can speak up at a podium. We'll have to discuss that later on. But really, I want to take this opportunity to say that the pleasure has really been all mine. To experience the pleasure of working with this library board, with past library boards, to work with our library director, to work with the library staff. It has been my pleasure to be the beneficiary of a very supportive city council, city staff, and mayors. The pleasure has really been mine to have the time and the experience to work with the dedicated friends of the Novi Library. I'm lucky, and I think this board is lucky, and fortunate to work with dedicated board members who put politics aside, personal interest aside, and made decisions in the best interest of the patrons and the best interest of the city residents. None of the accomplishments in the past 12 years would have been achieved without the teamwork approach. Now, for me, when I look back, and the highlights include, it is the building that we have there. That to me is a highlight. And before the building, to work as an individual on the ballot, that we work on as individuals and not in official capacity. But to me, that's the highlight. It allowed us to now have, double the participants that can visit the library and each day. It allows our collections to have grown to the extent that they've grown, and I think they've about doubled in terms of how many materials are exchanged each and every day. We had the fortune to be named the #1 library in Michigan a few years ago. We look back and we can now say that we are open for additional hours than we were before. And I like the fact that we don't have an accrued liability in our pension fund. We've eliminated that liability. We actually have a financial reserve. And we haven't had to have any layoffs because of the economic situation, which many libraries have suffered through. And there's one other thing that I want to say about our part-time employees, and I'm not excluding the full-time employees from that, but we depend in our library on a lot of part-time employees. Most of our employees are part-time employees, and as you know, a part-time employee really doesn't get all the benefits of a full-time employee. But I think we as a library have been able to provide some of those benefits, and we do some pro rata vacations and so forth. And so I think we've moved our part-time employees to a position that I'm happy to see where they are, even though I know that they don't have all the benefits of a full-time employee. So, but it wouldn't be without the teamwork approach. It wouldn't be without the friendships that I've been fortunate enough to create. Many of my friends are here. Few of them are not here, but most of my friends are here. So that it's really been a privilege for me to create these friendships along the way. I envision different challenges ahead for the library, but I'm confident in this current board, I'm confident in this director, I'm confident with our staff and with our friends and with all the other people, many of them here in the audience today, who are real supporters of the library. We will face whatever difficult challenges there are, and we'll do a great job, and we'll make the right decisions moving forward. I really wish to thank all of you for saying the kind words that you did today, but for having the privilege of being with you along for this 12-year ride. It's really been a pleasure for me. Thank you all.
At this time, I don't know if there's members from the actual board that would like to speak, and we'll go ahead and open that up.
Say something, if that's okay.
You're recognized.
I'm recognized, thank you, President Stirring. I'm almost one of the newest people, but I just say that one of the things that stands out to me about President Stirring is his demeanor. He was extremely welcoming. I think we sat together for like 5 seconds when I first got on the board, and I was in good company for sure. I think your ability to be welcoming, to be friendly, that really stands out. Obviously, you have amazing legal acumen, which is great. A little note that I really appreciate personally, I'm mentoring a young lady in undergrad, and she's amazing, and she wants to be a lawyer. And I thought, who could I connect her with that might be able to give her some insight? And I was pretty new, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I ask for a favor? And Mark was so open. He's like, yeah, give her my number, give her my email, and she only had great things to say about him. So if that's any indication of the character of Mark, I just wanted to make sure that went on record. Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
I really would echo what everyone else has said. I've served with Mark for, I think, 3 years. Can't keep track of that. And what everybody said is true plus. He's been a great leader of the board. He brings and brought so much knowledge to the board. And as everyone said, he has the ability to really form a consensus, to solicit everybody's opinions and ideas, and reach a conclusion and move on. And that's a trait that is hard to come by these days. So again, without repeating what they said, thank you very much.
Doreen.
I am the newest one on the board. This is my second official meeting. And I just want to comment on not only hearing all these powerful statements of the people who've worked with you and respect you and have labeled what you've done. You really leave a powerful legacy to this community, to this organization. And so as a newcomer, I thank you for that. I also want to speak to the institutional memory that you have and the power of institutional memory and what a loss that will be to the library for all that background. And so please only be a phone call away.
I will.
And from the newbie, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm struck by several things today. The first of which is in my prior lifetime, I had dealings with hundreds of attorneys. And none of them were like Mark. Zero. I can't believe that of all the 10 or 12 people that have spoken, the comments have been virtually identical. And they were exactly what I thought as I was driving here today. Mark can dive into a difficult situation, give one statement, and make all of us believe that we proposed the solution. And that's an unbelievable talent that we're going to severely miss. But I've only been with Mark for a year, but I couldn't agree more with all of the comments that we've heard tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got to pause. Thank you all, really. Thank you ever so much. I appreciate it. It's very, very meaningful to me. Moving on. Item number 7, public comment. This is a chance for the public to approach the podium if they have anything to say. Seeing nobody run to the podium, we're going to move on. Number 8, student representative report.
On January 16th, teens had the opportunity to learn about robots at the Introduction to Robotics program, sponsored by Club Z. And at the Financial Aid program on January 26th, students learned from Chad Somerville as he discussed different financial aid options for college. The Teen Space had a total of 542 attendees in January. And in the January TAB meeting, members discussed possible book titles for the upcoming launch of the library's Teen Book Club, which was today. And guest speaker Aaron Duret presented on 3D printing, and TAB members provided feedback on possible technology and STEM-based teen programs. So the upcoming programs are the Introduction to Robotics, which is on February 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th. The Pizza Taste Fest, which is on February 9th. The Teen Chocolate Party, which is on February 19th. The Resume Writing Workshop, which is on February 23rd.
Thank you, thank you. Any comments, questions in regard to our student representative report? Thank you again. Moving on to item number 9, which is the president's report. First item would be a goal update. I'm going to ask Julie to report on any.
Absolutely. A few things just to note for you. On page 32, at the bottom of the first section, it says a Library of Michigan continuing education grant was awarded to one of our IS staff members. That is Mike Postula, and that was a $500 grant going towards a leadership academy that he will be attending in the library profession. Page 33, towards the middle there, just noting our 2 budget planning sessions that we held on January 20th and February 6th. And at the bottom, just an update for you on some of the grants that we had submitted. Unfortunately, we did not win the grant that's noted at the bottom, which would have been the $7,500 towards STEM elements. On page 34, a couple dates for board members to be aware of. We will have the State of the City address on May 3rd, 2016. That is a Tuesday. I'll be sending out an email to all of you to confirm if you are able to attend. And then May 14th, we have our Spring into Novi, which is an event that we take part in here at the City of Novi, and that is a Saturday. Moving on to page 37, just wanted to note that we had a Listen at the Library event, which we had 80 participants, and then our MLK event, which we had 76 children attend on, that was the 18th of January. Moving forward to page 39, in the middle section there, I just wanted to let you know that this is for older adults and looking at a geek squad with teen volunteers and our older adults, and we've initiated conversations over at Fox Run in order to put this program together, linking teens and our older adults with learning technology. Moving forward to page 42, I wanted to note a number of homeowners presentations that took place in January, and we have many that have been scheduled for February and March. So as you can see, we're adding those, and it's great for us to have the opportunity to be connecting with our homeowners associations through the library. Page 43, we did receive 2 $750 summer reading program sponsors, 12 Oaks Mall and the Dearborn Federal Credit Union, which will be sponsoring our summer reading this summer for 2016. And on page 44, the HR committee, just an update, we have turned over a draft to all of you board members to be looking at, and I will be looking for any edits or comments by Friday, March 4th, if you have any, based on the draft that you received, and then we'll be able to move forward. And then just below that, we are continuing to work on the traffic study, which you saw information in our packet this evening. Any questions that I can address from the goals this evening?
Do you want to talk about the traffic study report now?
We can, sure.
My reading of the report was kind of very less than definite. It seemed to raise as many questions as it answered in terms of looking for an entrance coming on Wildcat Drive and having an exit on our main drive with a left and right. But my reading of the report seemed to indicate that they were very concerned about the queuing that would happen on 10 Mile Road.
Correct, correct. And I had the chance to meet with trustee Messerneck last night as a building and grounds. We're moving forward with having a meeting with Brian Coburn from the city in order to go over these results and to find out what our next step is and how we move forward. So I want to be able to get some insight from the city. And we are hoping to plan a meeting for Friday, the 26th of February, which is next Friday, in order to do that.
Okay.
But I do agree with you. I don't think the suggestion that we made in order for them to look into turns out to be the best solution. So whether we go back to the original plan or I think the other option that they offered, it involves a school, and I'm not sure if that's something that we're going to be able to move forward with. That's why I'll be looking for the city to offer some insight.
Yeah. Because I was left with sort of the conclusion that there's a congestion issue,
Right.
but there is no easy solution.
Correct.
That the easy solution isn't out there, at least we haven't identified it yet.
Right, right. And I did appreciate the comment about having the traffic lights, looked into and timing, which could potentially help some of those situations as well. So it'll be good to hear from Brian Coburn, because I know that that's the person we'll have to work through in order to have that happen along with whatever we move forward with.
Yeah, I was just going to summarize real briefly. We started this quite a while ago and looking at options, and we came up with what we thought was maybe a good option, if not a great one, of adding an extra lane going out onto 10 Mile. We wanted to look further than that because it is not a perfect solution. And as Julie said, they came out and they looked at another option that we had, which was to have all of the inbound coming down Wildcat Drive and the outbound going out the current drive onto 10 Mile. And they had a lot of concerns about doing that. And pretty much, I think, indicates that it would not be a better option than what we talked about. They presented one other option, and as Julie said, it involves the school, and I think there's problems with that too. So we're going to try to reach a decision really soon on this because we want to get the actual work done, whatever it is, in June. So that's what we're up against. If nothing else, what it convinced me of is that we're landlocked and there's really no good solution to it. Our idea of just adding an extra lane going out isn't great, but it does help a little bit. And I'm not sure, short of having a bridge over land we can't go through, I'm not sure that there's a better option. But we are going to look at it with the city and try to finalize it soon.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have comments? Doreen?
I would agree that just reading it cold, I guess I would like to know what's the status of working with the school system? Do we know that?
We have had a number of meetings with them, and initially, they started well. Then they didn't want to get involved with some of the suggestions that were made, which is why we sat down one last time in late fall about the suggestion for potentially that Wildcat ingress and then the egress, which they were comfortable with, and which allowed us then to move forward with just that opportunity to look in that for that particular study. I don't know with their suggestions now, what their response would be moving forward. So that's why I think it's good for us to sit down, sit back down with the city and then figure out at this point where we should we are not out of time, let me tell you that. We're still in a good time frame for everything that we wanted to do with going out to bid and potentially doing the project, by middle of June. The project that we had potentially already had set aside and had been planning for. So this doesn't set us back.
Go ahead.
I think it may well come down to which is the least imperfect situation, because I had sort of the same reading of it as I'm hearing here. Just anecdotally, the last time I worked the front desk, I asked a few people on their way in and way out, but what do you think of the traffic situation? And, it was totally anecdotal and no tabulation, but I didn't get a real vehement feel from them that it was awful. Now, this was about 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it probably would be different if somebody asked at different times.
Try it at 2.
I know. But it seems to me maybe it's going to come down to,
Yeah,
are we going to just do something to do something, or
right.
will it make a material difference, I guess?
Any other questions, comments relative to our goals? Okay. Next item under the President's report is nominations for the library board officers for May through April of 2017.
I know that typically trustee Verma works on this, so when he returns, I'll make sure to touch base. I just wanted to put it out there that, for you to be thinking, and if there's someone interested in taking an officer's role for the next year,
Right.
I'll make sure that Ramesh reaches out to everyone.
What I think we've done in the past is he usually has one other committee member or board member that
Yes.
works with him. So I would ask if anybody wants to work with Ramesh in terms of talking to board members if they're interested in positions and coming up with a tentative slate of officers for the following years. And are you interested in that? I saw that hand.
I can break through it, yes.
Okay. If you would work with Ramesh in regard to coming up with a slate of officers for the May through April of next year.
Typically, the slate would come in March for you to vote for April, for you to start in May, I believe. I will double check that, but I think that's how it's worked in the past, but I'll make sure that I let everyone know the time frame.
Yes. Now, in connection with that same topic, I want to raise the issue of, until we get to May, we are going to be missing a couple officers. John Lesko has resigned. I am not moving forward past March. And so as of next month, we're going to have a vacancy of the presidency and the vice presidency. And I would like to see if we could somehow, on a temporary basis, at least fill one or both of those positions tonight in terms of at least the next couple months. That I think that would make for the administration of the next couple meetings much more beneficial for everybody involved. I open it up to discussion, suggestions, if there are any at this time. I have admitted I've had a conversation with Craig, and he has been willing, not running to the front of the line or anything, but if you would either be willing to take the position of president or vice president, I don't think it makes any difference which one, but at least for the next couple of meetings to lead the board.
I'd be happy to, thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good. Any other discussion from anybody, or we can vote on this now, if there's no other nominees for the position?
So are you, just to clarify, are you looking for just a fill-in for the VP role for right now?
I think whichever way we do it, whether it's a VP or whether it's the president, because it would have the same effect. I think that I would suggest we call it president at this point, but whether it's the president or vice president doesn't make any difference.
Sure, and I said VP because we already kind of looked at him for a nomination for president, so
Yeah.
in consideration, I'm trying to understand what the time commitment would be for the VP possibility. Does that make sense?
I don't think I understood the question. In terms of how much time you'd have to submit for the VP?
No,
How long?
is it a fill-in role until May? Because.
Yes.
Yes, they would
yeah,
be.
Yes,
Does
it's
that
still,
make
it's
sense?
still May.
Yes, it's March and April.
It's still May.
So
That's
you
correct.
just need someone to step up until that time?
Yes.
And then, because I'll put myself out there. And
Oh,
Or
perfect,
VP.
perfect.
You can be the
We love
president
volunteers.
Perfect.
if approved.
We have two positions.
That's
Okay.
great.
Okay, so,
President, vice president.
yes, any other discussions, nominations? Okay, so I think we can do this very easy. The motion would be, for, trustee Mesernick to be the president and trustee Mishner to be the vice president.
For March and April.
For March and April.
So moved?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that trustee Mesnick would be the president for March and April, and trustee Mishner would be the vice president for March and April. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? You are unanimously approved for the respective positions. Thank you for volunteering and accepting those positions.
Sure. Do you wish to have a temporary treasurer?
Well, that would be the next thing, in light of the fact that you are going to be assuming the role of president. Is there anybody that would volunteer for the treasurer position? I know that you were thinking about it, Bill, but you don't want to commit tonight. I know that you're thinking about it.
I would like to get some more information, excuse me, before I make a decision.
Okay, that's fair, Okay.
And I can check our bylaws. I'm not sure. You might be able to serve in both roles, just in a, yeah, in that interim, and I will double check.
Okay.
Okay.
So we won't change that for now. And then when trustee Verma's back next month, that may help to address that concern as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Moving on then to the treasurer's report, item number 10.
Thank you,
Trustee
Mr.
Messina.
President. Let's start by looking at Fund 268. The first reports for that start on page 45. The current year budget for 268 is on 45 to 47. Again, this is unchanged, same budget we've seen all year long. Just to recap, it shows revenue of $2,673,000, expenditures of $3,087,000, thus indicating that we would need to consume $414,000 of our fund balance this fiscal year. The next 3 pages is the proposed budget for fiscal year 2016-2017. That's on pages 48 to 50. Again, this is the result of the work that we did in the 2 budget meetings in the past month or so. As you will see, revenues on the 16-17 budget are projected to be $2,774,000, and expenditures are projected to be $3,018,000. This is an increase budget year to budget year of 3.7% in the revenue line and a decrease in budgeted expenditures year over year from 2015-16 to 16-17 of 2.2%. Again, that's a decrease in expenditures. The budget for 2016-17 indicates a fund balance usage of $243,000. which is, again, considerably less than what the current fiscal year fund balance was projected to be in the budget. At this time, Mr. President, I believe we need to vote on the 16-17 budget. Is that right, Julie?
That is correct, too. We had 2 study sessions.
We did.
In regard to our proposed budget for the next year and the projected budget for the year after that. We have them now in our handout here. Any discussion in connection with the budget for next year and the following year? Julie, thank you for taking all the comments that we as board members had at those study sessions and incorporating them in here. I think you've done an excellent job of collecting our comments and
Thank
our
you.
concerns and reflecting them in here.
Thank you.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget.
So moved?
Second.
Budget for 2016, 2017 has been proposed, been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Budget unanimously approved.
Thank you.
All right. Continuing on with regards to Fund 268, if you look at pages 51 through 54, you will see the revenue and expenditure report. We'll take a look at those next. Our revenue for Fund 268 increased in January by a little over $23,000. The majority of that came from book fines and meeting rooms, plus an unrealized gain on investments. Our year-to-date revenue through January is $2,704,000. On the expenditure side, our expenditures increased by $248,000 in January. This includes a couple of significant one-time charges. We had $10,000 for stipends and $18,963,000 for final payouts. Our expenditures through the first 7 months of the year are $1,576,000. This is about 51% of what we had budgeted for the year. Since we're now through roughly 58% of the fiscal year, our overall position on expenditures continues to be positive. We continue to be well positioned to consume a fair amount less of our fund balance than what was reflected in the budget. Just a kind of a side note on a couple items. We've talked in the past several meetings about our heat and electricity expenses, and it's nice to see, if you look there, that we are running significantly ahead of budget, both and ahead of last year also. So whether it's the weather or the new units we put as you walk in, or for whatever reason, we're always happy to see those come down.
It's nice to have a mild winter.
Yeah. Through 7 months, we've had a positive net of revenue and expenditures for Fund 268 of $1,128,600. And barring any unforeseen events, we're positioned to consume, again, much less of our fund balance than what we had budgeted. Moving on to Fund 269, the next 2 pages, pages 55 and 56, show the budget for Fund 269 for the current fiscal year. Again, this is unchanged. There's a revenue projected of $41,700 and expenditures of $39,600 for a positive net of revenue and expenditures of $2,100. The revenue and expenditure report for Fund 269 is on page 57, and you'll see there through 7 months we've had revenue of $41,000 and expenditures of a little under $20,000, leaving us with a net of revenue and expenditures of a positive $21,000, almost $22,000 for the year. So thus, we continue to be in a good position relative to budget. Last but not least, we want to look at the 2 balance sheets for Fund 268 and 269. Fund 268 is on page 58. It shows a beginning of the fiscal year balance of $1,719,000. Then you'll see the net of revenue and expenditures that we just mentioned of $1,128,000. That brings our ending fund balance to $2,848,000. The balance sheet for Fund 269 is on page 59. Again, you see a beginning value of $1,629,000. Our current year net of revenue and expenditures of almost 22,000 brings our fund balance for Fund 269 to $1,651,000. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the report. Any questions of our treasurer and president-elect? Thank you, Craig.
You're quite welcome.
Director's report. Julie.
Sure, just a few things just to point out to you. Library budget, as you know, working and finalizing that. HR policy review, which we're currently moving forward with as well. I do want to put out a shout out to Tara Mitchner and Ramesh Verma, our two trustees who've been working on this since early September. So it took us about 4 months to get through all of these policies. It's definitely, there's a lot of policies to go through and a lot of time that's been put in. And then a number of staff, if I could take a moment, Barb Rukowski, Marcia Dominic, Evan Smale, Elizabeth Kopko, and Glenn Caldwell from the City of Novi from the HR department, who have all put their time in to be working on these policies with me over the last few months. So I know that we'll be going through those in the next few weeks and then hopefully bringing those for approval in March. I'm very excited to let you know that we are going to be collaborating with Walled Lake Public Library for National Library Week. We've decided on Saturday, April 16th at 11 a.m. to do a program with them. It's a variety show and there will be a performance, and we hope to do library card sign up. We're targeting specifically 4 schools, 2 of which are in Novi, but they are Walled Lake schools, and then 2 schools that are in the Walled Lake district, specifically and in the Walled Lake address. So we think between those 4 schools, between the 2 libraries, that'll be a good push to get out into the north end of our community and hopefully connect with some new families to provide this program. The Walled Lake Fire Department has offered their space, which is across the street from the Walled Lake Library, and I'll be taking a couple staff up there. If any of you would like to join me that day, please let me know. We'd love to have you in attendance. So I'm excited for those doors to be opening. I also, through consensus from our Neighborhood Library Association and our neighborhood partners that help with the community read, I also did a invitation for Walled Lake to join the community read event. So I'm waiting to hear back. I don't see her not accepting the invitation, but I have not heard yet. But I think it'll be great to have another library as part of that community read, and obviously one that serves a number of Novi residents. There's a number of meetings that were out and about for Novi and for the Novi for the library profession for me in the last month. Also noted, we did receive, and this donation came in last spring, but I've been working with the family on a designation for the donations that were made in memory of Robert Prost, and we'll be looking at some art, a piece of artwork that will be installed in the library probably in early summer. I'm currently working with the artist and working on the commission and with the family to make sure everybody is comfortable with moving forward with this. But I'm excited that we will have another piece of artwork eventually in the library. I do want to note that this evening, Keith Perfect, who is on our facilities staff, he hung the quilt that was donated and done when we had the MSU Tollgate program last spring, and it was brought in late fall for all of you to see, and it's now hanging. We had a spot located, and then the spot didn't work because the quilt ended up being longer than the wall that we were anticipating. And until you do those measurements, and then when you had it in mind and you're thinking, now where do we go? I do have to tell you that after 5 years, we are running out of wall space, which is exciting because, you just don't want to put things up on the wall. You want to have a purpose for them. I truly believe in that. And I'm also, my goal was to always have different pieces of artwork so that when people came in the library, they were seeing different mediums. So with the quilt being fabric, That's another medium that's been brought into the library, and it's hanging, when you stand at the self-checkout machines, you will see it on a beautiful beige wall, but now it's added a lot of color to the wall. So when you come in, I hope you take a moment to see it. It looks fabulous where it's located, so I have to thank Keith for that. The other artwork that I talked about with the Prost family, this will be oil. So another piece, again, that's different from what we have from all the other pieces. We're going to be doing a revamp of our art brochure, and our communications coordinator is going to look as one of her goals for 2016 to provide some art tours in our library to be able to talk about these different mediums and these different types of artwork that are in the building. I'm very proud of how we've been able to add different pieces to the library and had them have meaning and represent different mediums. So I'm excited about those few things coming in the future. Page 61, I did promise you that you would see a new report starting this month with Margie leaving the library. Information services highlights are being provided by our head of information services, which is April Stevenson. And so she has highlighted a number of different programs that took place in January and has provided a lot of great photos for you. She will continue to do this report for you in the future. On page 65 is the building operations report. This is put together by Keith Perfect and myself, different things that have been done through the building. Page 66, 67, and 68 is the most recent inspection on the cafe. There was one noted violation, which we had to have our staff actually take part in. There was a small leak at one of the sinks, and we've had our facilities guy looking into that. Yes?
I had a question and a comment. Was that a scheduled visit or unscheduled?
Those are unscheduled. He does not know. Usually they make 2 unscheduled visits per year, and it was unscheduled.
And the other observation was, I don't see any dramatic showstoppers in here, other than there was an uncorrected violation from the previous year. The floor fan in the kitchen area being heavily soiled.
And I've touched base with the cafe owner at this time, and he has taken care of it. Following is the traffic study, which we've already talked about this evening. And I will move on then to a number of statistics, as you can see how we are doing with 6 months, actually 7 months into our library services and usage. I'm very proud to point out, and I look at this every month because I'm really impressed with, on page 87, how our library app is doing. And it does get a lot of great usage. I'm so glad that we are using this form of technology. I want to let you know that we've just upped to the agreement to go with them for another 3 years. And I'm always interested in what the topics are, and they do change, month to month, what people are going to from our app. So I do think that there's a large segment of our population that is used to this technology and definitely taking use of, and definitely making use of it. And then following on page 88 and 89 is the City of Novi's Historical Commission. Their minutes from November 24th, these were approved already for you to note. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
So we're able to track every time a patron goes
Where
into
they're
the
going.
library app?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see what people are looking at and what they're using the app for. Obviously, the catalog I love, because it's always on there and that's in the top 5, so that means they are, and some patrons even feel it's easier to use it from the app than it is from just going in from their home computer and through the catalog itself. So, it's just having that convenience. It's another form of convenience for people to get to the library.
And my other question was probably better asked earlier, but
Sure.
probably due to the ceremony and such, I lost track of it. In the accounts payable,
Yes.
I'm starting to learn most of these, I think. The one that I guess not baffles, the one that I have a question about this week is ProQuest LLC,
Yes.
Fold 3 Military Records.
And you are on page
3,
three.
last line in page 3.
So ProQuest is an actual service that we use. It's for reference materials. So it's an online database, and these are military records that were made available that we can now make available to the public in order for them to access. If they're doing genealogy or they're doing any type of research, that's just different material, different information that's made available.
Like people's service?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, absolutely, and that's made through the company ProQuest, which we actually sign up for their services. Any other questions? Yes.
Mark,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Barry.
as I was listening to the record that we keep on apps and what people search for, I'm just wondering on people's right for privacy, is a name caught up with that? I mean, how do we protect people's privacy rights while at the same time keeping track of their usage?
We're only doing numbers, so I'm happy to tell you that. We are not tracking names at all.
And so people know that their privacy is protected?
Yes, and that's through the Privacy Act that we actually, the Patriots Act and the Privacy Acts that we follow, yes. And we don't provide any information out to anyone when it comes to their personal information, even library card information.
I think that that's an important reminder.
It
that
is.
we keep front and forward, I think particularly now with what's happening currently with Apple and the government and so on.
Oh, I agree. And I know sometimes, I think our support services staff take a little bit of a beating sometimes by, asking those questions or not allowing someone to check out on a card that's not theirs, But and the only reason they do that is it is for safety and it is for privacy. So when we run into those situations, that is what our main focus is for that privacy.
Any other questions? Okay.
What's that?
Do committee reports?
HR committee, it's just, I know we've already talked about it. I think we're beating a dead horse, but, but we're working on those policies, so we're all set there. The other was building and landscaping, which we'll be meeting, we did meet, trustee Messerneck and I, and we are planning to meet on Friday, the 26th of February with the city in terms of the traffic report.
If I can ask a question now in regard to, I did read the HR committee reports or the proposed changes in the policies, and no, we're not talking about adopting them or not. But there was a change that I noticed, and I was curious if someone could give me the reason for that. And it had to do with moving up the benefits for new hires relative to health insurance and one other thing from the date of hire as opposed to the end of the probation period.
And that's because we're following the city in terms of how all the benefits are, it's following the city's, we already do it following the city. That is why.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
that's-
we ended up changing it because that is what we do in terms of following their guidelines. And so we're making it known in the policy now, but it is because we're following what they're doing.
Okay. Are there a lot of people that don't pass the probation period?
No, they're not.
Because I know that it is rather cumbersome
Right.
relative to complying with COBRA and stuff like that, that once they're on the policy, and if there were a lot of people or a number of people that sort of didn't make it past the probation period, that's, at least for many private employers, that's kind of an economic, administrative burden.
Right.
That most private companies do not want to put people on those programs because it's not just for the probation period, it goes on forever, but
Right.
it's consistent with what the city does, and we really don't run into the problem
We
with a lot
don't.
of people that are on probation.
Correct.
So it really would seem to be that's not really adding an administrative burden.
It is not.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that
Yep,
explanation.
absolutely.
Anything else on the committee reports?
There are not. All good.
Any other questions from my fellow board members? This is then the time for public comment. Anybody in the audience that has any comments that they want to make to the library board, this is your chance to rush to the podium. This may be the last meeting that we don't have a time limit for the audience at our audience participation. We're going to discuss matters where we're going to limit the audience and how long they can speak. So, but if there's nobody rushing to the podium, we're going to move on to board action. We have already approved our 16-17 budget. The second item under matters for board action is moving the library regular board meetings from the third Wednesday of the month to the fourth Thursday of the month, beginning January 2017.
And the reason behind that was so that we feel we can get better financials if we can go 1 week later, and there won't be so much of a backlog, knowing that typically when our meetings are very close to their cutoff date for financials to be received. So we're hoping that this will better the information that we receive each time. I know that we will run into an issue when it comes to Thanksgiving and Christmas, sometimes not necessarily, but we'll have to look into that always and pay attention to that if we move to the fourth Thursday. But I can tell you that I have checked with the city, and there is no other conflict whatsoever with Thursdays and being here the fourth Thursday of the month and meeting here and having SWAC and our cable.
Is there any merit in addressing November and December now, as opposed to when we come to November and December in the year? Like instead of,
Right.
instead of setting the fourth Thursday in every month, do we want to set the fourth Thursday in
And
the
then
first
do
10
November.
months?
And-
And then what would you propose for November?
I say we
The
go back to the third,
Thursday
yeah,
or
I say we
the-
go back to that third Wednesday just for those two, because we know that, I mean, there is no conflict and we would be able to have the room. That's more of an issue. Again, we could be running into financials being not as complete, but I don't think that will be huge. So we could actually set it where it's the fourth Thursday of the month except for November and December.
And that would be the third Wednesday or the third Thursday?
Third Wednesday. Let's do the third Wednesday on those, because I know that there's no conflict. The third Thursday there is. I tried to move it, but really the fourth is better for us in terms of always having no conflict here.
Okay. Does that make more sense?
It does.
Than to get close to that time period, and then
Yep.
that way it can go on the calendar right away?
Exactly, it can, and then we'll be able to we'll be able to give that to the city as well for the calendar that's for the city calendar. So we'll go ahead and,
Okay.
Does that need a motion?
It does,
It
yeah.
will if we, I'm gonna entertain then a motion to move the library board regular meetings from the third Wednesday of the month to the fourth Thursday of the months in January through October, and the third Wednesday in November and December, starting in January of 2017. There's a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none. The motion passes to change the library board meetings starting in January of 2017. They will be on the fourth Thursday of each month through October, and then in November and December, they will be on the third Wednesday.
very good. Thank you.
The third item that we're looking at to approve this evening in our matters of board action is audience comment language. We talked about this before, and the idea was to do something very similar to what City Council does. Let me read what's here. Audience comment. In order to hear all citizens' comments at a reasonable hour, the library board requests that the speakers respect the 3-minute time limit. This is not a question-answer session. However, it is an opportunity to voice your thoughts with the Novi Public Library Board of Trustees. Speakers wishing to display visual materials through the city's audiovisual system must provide the materials to the library administration office at least 5 days prior to the meeting. That's the the suggested language. Any comments in regard to the suggested language? Do we really need it 5 days in advance, the audiovisual materials?
I can't speak for the city. I know that's their requirement, and we would have to work with them to make sure that it's here. So there is going to be some setup and conversations between us and them in order to make sure that a presentation is ready and available. So 5 days to me seems like a good number, if we're working with someone to make sure we have information available.
Okay. I suspect a lot of speakers don't have their stuff ready 5 days in advance or their presentations.
I don't know. I've dealt with some who have and some who don't, and I'm sure at least having a time frame I think is good to start with. If we ran into a problem, we could always work with it, but just having something in writing helps.
Doreen?
Is there a distinction between written material handouts and audiovisual system? And does this include, when you think audiovisual, the visual is a handout. I mean, handouts are, so.
It's actually anything that you'd be presenting here at, here at the board, or right up here at the podium.
So the old-fashioned acetate overhead projector.
Well,
sheet would-
you can do that, or you can bring a flash drive and you can have something uploaded. And that's, I think, where even more the concern is making sure we have the right files and we're uploading the correct information, which can sometimes take more time than someone. There is equipment here that you can literally lay down, and it's called a Elmo, I believe it is, but you lay down the material and it reflects that information up on the board. So that's actually not as critical as someone who might have a flash drive or something and making sure we have the right information or files.
I think that this has been criticized by public commentary at the city council meetings, because the 5 days really is difficult. They frequently don't know what the agenda is in order to be prepared 5 days in advance, and so that has been questionable. But
Yeah.
when is the agenda available?
Our agenda is typically available 3 to 4 days in advance of the meeting, so, and they would have to be going through us in order to be on the agenda, and we would be communicating with them if they had anything in order to provide, they'd have to be providing it to us so that we could add it to the agenda. So I think the communication is there. I mean, I don't think we would be there wouldn't be, if they're making a presentation, they're going to have to communicate with us in advance in order for us to have them on the agenda.
However, if they're reacting to or
Something.
wishing to speak against,
Right.
they really would not be allowed to have an audiovisual because the agenda is not up 5 days. That's
Right.
not that
Yeah, I'm wrestling with a
Sure.
distinction between knowing that they're on the agenda
Or
versus
just-
the actual presentation, the audio-visual presentation that they would provide 5 days in advance. And is there, to me, there's a difference in terms of, I know I'm on the agenda, but I think the 5 days, I wrestle with a little bit that I may having that entire audio-visual presentation handed in to somebody in advance. And I know we're
Right.
talking a little bit about it, we don't have a lot of that, but if that is the necessary time that it seems to review that material and get it ready, I support that. If it could be less time, I kind of think the speakers might.
And I think we can work with them, like I said. The only concern I always have, and I think I do believe from what I've heard from council and some of the leadership team, is that sometimes someone will bring a flash drive and they go to put it in and it's not reading properly off the laptop. And then you run into a situation where you can't pull up someone's information who's just come from public, audience comment and wants to show something, and then it's not working. So I think they were trying to be proactive in making sure that it was up and running properly, and that's why they asked for an advance. I think it's to make sure that, because the technology is changing every day. We run into it at the library all the time, people wanting to do a presentation with what we have and making sure it works. We've had to, buy new cords because you're using Apple and we're using PC, and now you're using this and we're using that. So I do believe it's more just making sure, we can connect with their equipment, and we're not as versed, they usually have someone here, but we're not as versed with the city's equipment as we are with our own at the library.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is your concern more along the lines of public comment could be someone that's listening in and then all of a sudden they have thoughts and they haven't given notice, as
Right.
opposed to a speaker, like when Kathy Crawford comes in and gives
Right.
the actual presentation? Is your
I think you are talking two different.
Yeah, they are different. So is your concern that a person that does have something on their heart that they want to share, that may have decided that day, may not be able to display all of that information? Is that?
Yeah,
Maybe it should say something like, we will try to accommodate or something, because I don't want their hopes up of it'll work, and then what if they run into a situation? It's not gonna be our fault. We're not gonna know in advance what they have or what we're working with.
So maybe a note that says, please be aware about technical difficulties that could occur, or something along those lines that sounds better.
I don't know how,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think there's two issues in mind. One is delivering the material in advance, and does
Correct.
that mean that we're reviewing the material to determine whether it's acceptable to present?
For a presentation, right.
The second thing is the more technical part about it. If you deliver it to us advanced, that we will make sure that we have the technical capabilities of presenting it.
Right.
And I think those are the two issues that we're concerned about, or at least that I'm concerned about.
Right.
And will somebody really review this material in advance?
If they're coming just public comment, you won't. You won't have the opportunity to review it. If someone is if someone's calling me in advance and wanting to do a presentation, then yes, I would be reviewing it and saying, because I'll have it in your packet, I'll let you have it also in advance. So it's two different things we're talking about.
I was, without some sort of time frame, then somebody could come in the morning of the meeting and want to have something displayed electronically and then be unhappy when we weren't able to accommodate it. I'm assuming that we could have 5 days in there, and if they come in 4 days early and we
Yes.
can do it,
Yeah.
we're going to do
We
it.
will do what we can and try very hard to.
It's really kind of the expectation setting limit, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that if this said something, to ensure that your audio-visual presentation can be provided, you should give it to the administration 5 days in advance. Kind of the way it reads, if you don't give it to the administration 5 days in advance, you're not allowed to do it.
Right.
And I don't think that's the tone that we
No,
want to.
that we want.
That we want.
I do. You want to repeat that? To ensure,
To ensure an audio-visual presentation, speakers,
or to ensure a positive audio-visual presentation, or do you know what I mean, that it
to-
goes
to-
well?
To ensure an audio-visual presentations, speakers should present those materials 5 days in advance.
Okay.
You used the phrase technical capabilities when you talked about it before.
That's
And
good.
so
I like that.
you're really ensuring the technical capabilities for the presentation.
I think that, I feel more comfortable with that if they come in later and we can still do it, fine. But if they don't deliver it 5 days in advance, then they don't really give us enough time to work out the technical issues we gotta work out.
So, should it read, to ensure proper technical capabilities, speakers should, are you looking to change that, or, excuse me?
ensure the technical to ensure the technical ability to provide an audio-visual presentation. Speaker should deliver such materials to the administration at least 5 days prior to the meeting.
Or you could leave it the way it is and add it at the end. You know, speakers wishing to display must provide materials in order to ensure technical capabilities during the meeting or something. If it gets, this is not, we don't want to wordsmith probably from this table. Could Julie get back to us at the next meeting?
I can bring it back again if you want to see it.
Because it's the tone you're looking for.
Yes, yes.
You could even start out something that we welcome, you know, audiovisual presentations in order to ensure that they meet our technological capabilities. They need to be 5 days in advance, so.
Is that a fair task, Julie?
Sure.
If we look at it, some of us look at it next month
I'll bring it for second draft, absolutely.
for a second draft.
Yes,
Okay?
great.
Just to be clear, so the intent is that however that gets wordsmithed, we would read that paragraph twice each meeting.
Correct. And I'd make sure that I'd put it into the agenda so it could be read from the agenda.
To be addressed at the next meeting.
Very good.
Any other matters for board action? Anybody has?
Other than just a huge thank you for your
Yes.
12 years of service.
I'm so impressed with all these nice comments. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mark.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all.